Namaste and a very warm welcome to you on Sarva Gunn Sampann. Thank you for subscribing to my channel and joining me on this platform where I have the opportunity to connect with women of India, women of Indian diaspora, and showcase and spotlight their journeys, their unique journeys and their personalities and perspectives. My guest today is a woman who values empathy, integrity, accountability, and collaboration. Some of her strengths include being hopeful and optimistic, maintaining friendships, teamwork, and being innately curious. I'm delighted to welcome my namesake, Anupama Krishnan, on Sarva Gunn Sampann. It's such an honor to have you on the show. Anup, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing great, Anu. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really delighted to be on the show, and I think it's a great honor to be a part of the show. Thank you so much for having me.
And I cannot wait to learn about you, learn from you about your journey and all the things that you have been up to. So we'll get started on that note. Our first segment is about your childhood. It's called Bachchpan Ke Din, and you're just taking us back in time and sharing all the things that happened in your childhood that really went on to shape the person that you are today. So without further ado, let's get to work and let's get started.
All right. Thank you, Anu. Basically, my parents are from Kerala, but my parents settled in Bangalore. So I was born in Kerala, and then since my parents had settled in Bangalore, I had all my childhood. I went to school and college and lived in Bangalore all my life. And I went to a local school over there. Lived in the south of Bangalore. And I take great pride in saying I went to a school which was, I guess at that time, now thinking about it, for that time, they were very progressive, I would say that. And it was run by, it was a very small school, and it was in a city in south of Bangalore. I grew up in a city called Jayanagar, and the school was in a city called Bachchpan, and it was called the Home School. And it was run by the headmistress. The principal at that time was a Kurgi lady, and then the teachers that we had was very, very, very high Anglo-Indian influence, and they were all, and so Bangalore being such a big, a metropolitan city with a huge Anglo-Indian influence over there, all of our teachers were mostly Anglo-Indian, so it was highly British, and the language and the way we spoke, and we had teachers who made sure that we spoke English the right way. Right. So I think at that time it was very, very difficult to accept it, but growing up and today looking back, I think that was really has really shaped the way we were able to think, our thought processes and everything. And then eventually went to a convent, ended up run by the Apostolic Carmel sisters. So when there, it was a very different journey because you go from a co-ed to an all-girls school. But again, it was a very interesting, and you get to meet a lot of people over there. And I think convent education teaches you a lot. As a child, I have an older sister, so I was the baby. I was the younger one. And of course, very rambunctious, naughty, and I was the baby in the family. So I would say we had a really good childhood and very memorable one. There were some unfortunate instances, but my dad passed away when we were really little. My mother was a single parent, so it was just the three of us. So my sister and me are not very much years apart, but it was my mother and the two of us. My mother has definitely, she has been she's always my role model. She's the one who, living in a city in Bangalore, where we do not really have very many relatives. It was just friends. My mother worked in the health department. And so growing up, she really molded us to who we are today. And she made sure that we were very independent because there was no other option. We were taught to be independent at a very, very young age. So there was never, you cannot do it kind of thing. I don't know how to do it. There was never like, you don't know. No, go learn, just go figure it out. You have to do that. And my dad, though he was there for very few years of our formative years, he was with us. But even him, he never liked to hear, I don't know how to do it. From a very young age, we were taught that no is never, we don't want to hear that. That's not an answer. So that made us fiercely independent. My mother is a very independent person. That I think made us, I say us, my sister and me also, I can't speak just for me. So we made us fiercely independent, which sometimes you feel like it has helped immensely, and it has its negatives too, for sure. But so that was the kind of childhood, and yeah, filled with friends, fun, relative. I mean, we always went back home for our holidays. Aunt's place always traveled to Kerala for our holidays and spent summer vacation with our relatives in Kerala, like my aunts and cousins. The life lessons that we learned growing up was a lot. It really helped us, and has been helping us so far.
No doubt. It's such a sharp contrast in many ways from the way parents are raising their kids today. Again, to have a mother that was such an incredible role model. And I can just imagine how challenging it must have been to raise two daughters and
Yeah,
set an example
absolutely.
every step of the way, right?
Absolutely. And now, I mean, certain things that she had certain ground rules for us, and kids are kids, right? And if we went, we never have wanted to listen to her. And looking back, I'm like, oh my God, how did she even do it? I mean, at the face of at the where we are in our lives today, I can imagine. And looking back, I think like we were not easy. It must have been quite difficult for her, but she made sure that there was, and the only thing that she told us was, you have to study. I mean, which has always been, I think every Indian parent growing up, it's like education is the biggest thing. And all that she gave us was, she told us was, all I can give you is a good education, and you girls have to make your own future, and whatever your future brings to you, it takes you, you have to go with it. So, and on those lines also, and I started working right after my high school. I worked in a library because she said, you cannot stay home, because I took a gap year, which was unheard of in those days, to pursue, thinking that I'd get into med school, which never happened. But then she's like, no, you cannot sit at home. If you sit at home, what the choice is, get married. I'm like, no, we're not getting married now. So at 18, you don't want to get married at 18. So the thing is, she created a situation where it said, like, these are your options, you pick. And it's so it was like, okay, then everyone to pursue a career and things like that. So got me started to work. I mean, working in college at those days was not easy, and I was really fortunate that I could probably land in situations, or friends or family, they introduce you to people, and I got an opportunity to work. And when you're 18, 19 years old, you start working. It puts a sense of responsibility and a sense of what it is and how hard it is to bring in. It was like, okay, this is the only how much of money I'm going to give you as your pocket money. The rest of it, you make do with what you have. So, that gave me the opportunity, and I was very fortunate. I mean, how often do you get that? I mean, people, friends and family said, okay, so you need to get to a safe place where you can work, and work is completely a different ball game, right? Yeah, when my friends were out having fun, I was logging in a lab working, but on my own choice, for sure.
And truly, that was something that was not common, right? In those days, you didn't
Correct.
have anybody who was working right after high school, and
Correct.
that's the reason why when you experience life here and you see kids are working as soon as they hit 16,
Yeah.
it takes time to adjust to that whole idea, especially for parents who are first generation immigrants. But
Yeah.
For you to have that opportunity was fantastic. I mean, you learned so many lessons early on.
That experience is, sometimes when people talk about it, it's foreign to me when someone says that, how does that even happen? And I look back, okay, did I do something strange? No, I did something which was necessary. I mean, it was a good, thinking back at that point, it was like, yes, I want to do this. I mean, there was never my mother never forced us for something, but she had ground rules. If you don't follow the ground rules, like I guess every parent does, if you don't follow those ground rules, guess what? You have to be ready to face the repercussions of it. So that's how the whole thing went through. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think the good old values that Indian parents impart, especially when it comes to education, but also in your case, for you to work so early on and, develop those soft skills, develop those life actually. I think
Yeah.
it was a fantastic thing.
Yeah, looking back and some of those things, I mean, as we talk, I mean, all those memories keep coming back. I mean, it was a very, very simple job. It was, I mean, simple in the sense it was after school, after college, you go in and you start work. I mean, you have to be there at a particular time. So there's only 1 or 2 days you can tell that, I mean, it's so much fun to hang out with friends after college, right? I mean, that's where I mean, class is fun, but then still everyone's like running away to do stuff. So it's like, no, I need to be at this place. And so it teaches you sense of be how to a structured life. I mean, you need to be on time, and you need to finish your job, and you need to tally the accounts. You need to make sure that there are certain things each job demand. Each whatever chore is given to you, it demands certain thing from you. So when you start that early on, and it's now looking back, I think at that time there might have been days where I didn't like it, but I think I'm so glad I did what I did all through those formative years.
You had an opportunity to experience that part of life, and given the circumstances, make most of whatever came to you. So that is great. We'll move on to our next segment, Anu here, which is Ye Kahaan Gaye Hum. This is your journey after your high school, and it's all the way till the present day. So this is a long span, but again, the idea is just to learn about where life took you next.
Yeah, like I earlier mentioned, went to college, wanted to get into the healthcare, wanted to be a doctor, didn't happen. So I got this opportunity to go to this college where they were starting a new line. I mean, it was a new major, as you may say. And so I was already working in a laboratory. So because this was a friend's dad had a laboratory, a diagnostic laboratory, and he was looking for help after hours, like after 5 o'clock, because they worked till about 7. So he came up and he said, Anu, why don't you come and help me out? And since you are interested in the medical field, this will help you, because it's a medical diagnostic laboratory. And I'm like, I jumped at the opportunity. I'm like, great. At that point, the amount of money that he offered me was much more than what my mother would give me as pocket money. So it's like, okay, great. And I thought my mother would give me pocket money. And she said, no, you're earning. So no pocket money for you. You earn your money. So I was like, okay, doesn't matter. It's okay. Doesn't matter. We'll just take it. So I started over there. And then, so college, I ended up doing a degree. My undergrad degree was in microbiology. And then I also I used to work in the laboratory in the evening and help out. And then it so happened, his daughter was my friend. It was my very good friend. She had gone on to med school. So he would go to visit her, and then weekends, the lab used to be on. We had to manage the laboratory, which taught me a lot, and as the soft skills and also some of the things, because it's a related field. So did that summertime, worked at the lab over the summer, and again, I might have missed out on a lot of fun and maybe lost a lot of friends along the way. But hey. It's ultimately it's survival. I mean, you got to sustain yourself, kind of a thing. So that went on, and then after that, after college, did not pursue my master's or anything at that time, because it was again, my mother being a single parent. It was like, why don't I get a job? I mean, I was already working, so I ended up in the apparel industry. I was looking for a job, and at that time, the garment industry was booming in India, and so I got into the garment industry, and I worked in the garment industry, and I take great pride in saying that I worked for a couple of large exporters in India who exported made garments and sold to Europe, US, and the different countries. So I spent a few years over there. And again, very high paced, very interesting, and clothes. Who doesn't like clothes? I mean, and it was, and got to meet a lot of people, because when you're in the export field, you get to meet all of your clients are coming from overseas. I had some European customers, and one of my accounts handled the maximum number of production in certain periods of time for summer, winter wear, and all of that. So did that for a little bit, and never in my. I thought, okay, this is going to be my life. Just move on. Just maybe move to a buying house someday, because things started changing, and it was at a very, very interesting period in India where everything was changing so quickly, and things were, college also was very interesting because at that time it was in the 90s, and things were moving on so quickly at that time. And so you felt like you are moving literally as the country was changing and as the different faces were changing, kind of moving with that. So it was I still think working, that was my first job was in the lab, but then my first real job was my first love. Literally, it was so much fun working over there and working with clothes, interacting with people, and with people who you don't even know about. And so that was very interesting. And then I moved to Chennai for a short period of time, and I worked in another company in Chennai that was a company that I really, really wanted to work in. So I saw an ad, got the opportunity, went, applied. I never even thought I would get through in an interview. So got that, was there for a little bit. I was in Chennai having the time of my life, friends and financial freedom, away from home. What more can a girl ask, right? Run away from the watchful eyes of my mother, and with a promise that I'll come home once a month. And so she's like, okay. And so she said, is this it? It was very difficult initially. And another reason was to move out of home. At that point, it got into a point where it's like, started to feel that I'm getting too dependent on my mother, and my mother likewise. Because by then my sister was married, she left. It was just my mother and me. So then we're getting too protective and things like that. So it's like, okay, at some point I need to leave home. I need to make it on my own. So it sounded very foreign and my mother was like, are you sure? She said, why are you running, or why are you leaving home? I'm like, no, I think I need to make it on my own. How much longer am I going to be here? And I just want to see what it is. And then she said, okay, fine. If you need to go, like I said, she's never stopped us. She said, and they said, where do you want to go? And I was thinking like, okay, let's move to Bombay. How exciting. She said, absolutely not. Okay, Delhi. She said, no way. So I was like, okay, closest is Chennai. And I like Chennai a lot. I used to travel to Chennai quite a bit. I had a lot of friends over there. So I said, okay, Chennai is closed. It's an overnight trip from Bangalore. And what's the worst that's going to happen? If it doesn't work out, suck up my pride and come back home. And my mother she's like, okay, if that's what you want to do, I'll never stop you. If you want to go, go. And then, but you have to have a job, and she has to be comfortable where she sent me, and to make sure that I was in a safe place and I could take care of myself. And so that's how I ended up in Chennai. And then she moved me. She came with me. We went with bag and baggage to Chennai. She came with me, helped me set up the apartment and things like that, which was really, really nice, because that made a big difference for me, because I was not going against her wishes or not going against what she wanted me to do. She asked me a few times, are you sure you want to do this? I'm like, absolutely. And it was so strange when I went for the interview, because I was working in one of the largest export houses in India at that time. When I went for the interview to Chennai, I still remember that interview where the big boss, the final interview, you get through the different rounds, the final interview, he looks at me and says, you have such a beautiful life in Bangalore. Why are you leaving home? I'm like, I want to make it on my own. He looked at me and said, you're hired. I want you here in my company. I'm like, that was, and then later I went on to hear from somebody else. Nobody has ever told somebody who's like, he's supposedly the big boss, like, I want to make it on my own. Who even says that? I'm like, that's the truth. That's what, if you are who you are and that's what you want to do, I guess how much ever we mask what we want to mask, it just comes out, right? Yeah. So worked there for some time, and then my husband Sabu, he's lived in the US for many years. He's very much a Malayali. He's been here for many years, and he was traveling to India, and they were setting up a operation in India at that time. And so it so happened he's friends with my aunts, my mother's sister, and things like that. Apparently, in the background, somebody has been talking about there's this girl reach, and there's the conversations, right? You're working, you're independent, and they want you to get married. And so it's like, why not? I'm like, oh no, not interested in marriage right now. So it just so happened. He was in Chennai, he was in India, and I got to meet him and through friends, and then there's this huge pressure. Okay, don't get married, just talk to him. I'm like, okay, that's not going to stop with talking. There's always an intention behind it. But well, it so happened I got to meet him, because with definitely with with family pressure to meet him, talk to him, and yeah, I met him, and it's a bizarre story. He was setting up his operation in Chennai. I was in Chennai, and then I had to travel all the way to Bangalore just to meet him, and I was like livid when I heard he's coming from Chennai. I'm a little bit of a rebel too, or rather, quite a rebel. So it was like, why did you drag me all the way to Bangalore when I could meet this guy in Chennai? It's like, no, when you meet a person with prospective, with marriage in mind, it has to be in the home. And I'm like, oh my God, people don't change, do they? So yeah, so met him, and then we hit it off really well. And then he was at that time. I'm like, I came back to. I come home, and my sister was in the U.S. by then, and they were telling me you should move to the US at least for your higher studies and things like that. And I already also had a job offer in another country and in the export field. So it was like it was three things. There was a guy coming to meet you with the prospect of marriage, and there was somebody put my sister and my family pushing me to come to the US to study, and then I have a job offer which I got on my own accord. So it's like, okay, which one are you going to pick? So then I told Sabu, I said, you know what, you go back to the US, let me go work I'll go work in the export house. And it was in the Far East. I said, okay, let me go to the Far East and work. You go back to the US. We'll think about it and we'll come back and get married if things work out. Well, it so happened the Far East just crumbled. And then the economy just tanked at that time. And finally, it was after talking to Sabu a lot, and we kind of got along really well. Said, okay, chalo, let's get married. I got 2 weeks to decide whether I'm going to get married to this person, because it wasn't like the typical you meet a person in the morning and 2 days later or next evening you have to tell yes kind of a thing. Because I guess I was at a point in my life where everybody thought there's no point in pushing this girl. The more we push her, she's going further away. So yeah, so got married. Got married in 98 of February, and then I came here, and so at that time, because they were starting a greenfield operation in Chennai, the company that I still work for the company, and they were looking for somebody to help with the transition of to set up that operation. So I started working over there, and then I came here, and I was given this. I mean, said, why look further? There is this person who has the experience, who can work it. So I came here pretty much, and I told Sabu right from the beginning, I'll move to the US, but that was the time of the H4, everybody dependents coming in, can't work. At some point in my life, I made it very clear, and which is why my mother allowed me to travel, move out of home and move to Chennai. I'm doing this because I want a career. I am not going to I cannot sit at home. I do want a career. At some point in my life, I had realized if I don't have a career, there won't be things that if I want to do it, I will not be able to do it. And I don't feel comfortable not being, to have my own, to pave my own destiny. So that thought came on pretty early in my life. So I told Sabu that. I said, you know what? I am not going to sit at home. I want to work. I do want a career. So even today he jokes about it. He said, okay, fine. You want a career? Sure, let's have it. I mean, and I had a telephone interview with the boss over here at that time. And then I came to the US in the middle of a week, and I started working the next Monday. I mean, yeah, so I was able to, because it was on a work visa, so I could work. And so I started, because by then they had made all the arrangements so that they knew that I was coming from India. So I could work over here. So I started working on a Monday, and it as 25, 26 years later, here we are with the same company. I've not worked in another different company in this country. And yeah, that's how I landed in the US through marriage.
Yeah. And, God closes one door, but he opens another window, like they say. Far East did
Window,
not.
Anu.
But everything else fell into place. You got married because that was meant to happen.
Yeah.
And then you came to the US and didn't have to struggle with a dependent visa and
Correct.
need to work, but you had everything lined up for you.
It was really something. You think back now, it looks like it was something that was really meant to be. Even in my wildest of wild dreams, I mean, like America is always US. Oh yeah, I'll go there because by then my sister was here. It was like I will travel to the US at some point to have fun, to just go out and walk the streets of New York. Literally like straight out of a soap opera kind of a life. And to get married and come here was like, and to live in the US was something I never even in my wildest of wild dreams I thought. I mean, moving to Chennai itself was, I'd had to hear so many different things from all my close friends. They thought that I was a traitor because leaving Bangalore and moving to Chennai was a total traitor to my friends. And then when I left Chennai and I said I'm moving to the US, they're like, "You moving to the US? Are you really sure?" And that to getting married and moving to the US, it's like was I guess at some point some all of us. I mean, because none of us were married. All my friends were all single at that time, so they were probably we all had formed that kind of a group where none of us thought we'd ever get married. So it was like you can't break the pact kind of a thing. It was, yeah.
That's good to know, Anu. All right, we'll move on to our next segment, and I guess everything you've talked about your work and the fact that it was pretty seamless, coming and adjusting here, and it wasn't much of an adjustment except a new country, I guess, and a new culture. But going by the looks of it, you already were exposed to a very independent lifestyle back in India, where you were a woman that had her own mind and knew where she was going. So this was an opportunity that just cemented your personality and what you were trying to achieve. So
absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit about your work in our next segment, which is Kaam Ki Baat. And here I'd love to understand, with a degree in microbiology, but great amount of work experience in the apparel industry, especially pertaining to exports. What kind of experience have you gained? What are some of the qualifications and skills that you need? What does your line of work entail? And, so if somebody is trying to get into this field, what are the things that they should know and they should be aware of? So this is pretty much, giving us a good overview of what you do.
Yep. Coming over here, moving in over here, definitely there was adapt to be able to adapt to this country was the I had no fear about it. It was like, excited when you're coming here, you're married, and you're moving into a new country. And the biggest excitement for me was I'm moving to the same country where my sister lives. She lived in upstate New York. I moved to Cleveland and Sandusky. We moved to Sandusky. My husband used to live in Sandusky at that time. But it was exciting to come here. But it never occurred to me that I would have to adapt to a new country. That was not even a thought. I guess the process was pretty organic in a way. So when I came here, there were certain things which I really did not know. The only thing I felt comfortable was, okay, I'm comfortable with the person that I'm coming with. And secondly, the language. I never thought being very fluent in English was and now I think about those things. Those days it was never even a thought. So then the only thing that I had to learn was how do you do things differently in this country? Like, even starting from the driving part of it. It was those, but then I had Sabu had been here for plenty years and he had a lot of friends. There were some people, elderly aunties who they literally, there's this person who helped me transition and taught me what it is to live in this country as an Indian. But in Sandusky, Ohio, there were barely any Indians. So we used to come to Cleveland because Sabu knew a lot of people over here because he used to live in Cleveland before. But then when I started working, my work became my family. And when we lived in Sandusky, it was such a small community. Everybody knew everybody else. And the ladies and the people over there at Sandusky at the factory, it was a lighting manufacturing factory. They used to make lamp making equipment at that time. And so that company, there were a lot of these. So they knew that Sabu was coming in. I was the only person who came from overseas that they had ever met. And Sabu was the only Indian at that time in that company. They made sure that they had a get together. So all the ladies they met, they had a welcoming party just for me. So to be comfortable and they knew I did not drive at that time. I knew how to drive, but it's just that I was not familiar with driving in the US. So they made sure that they would help me out. And the next bizarre thing is my husband, after 2 days, a week after I came here, he had to leave on a business trip. So he introduces me to another China. There was another guy who used to take care of the China operations, and he lived in the same city as Sandusky as us. And he introduces me to him, and he says, Dylan, this is my wife. I know this is Dylan. Tomorrow I'm off. So he used to drive me to work, take me to the grocery store, and give me, you have 5, how long do you want to take? I'm like, I have no idea. And the previous day before he leaves, he takes me to the store and says, you get milk here, you get bread here, you get eggs here. And I'm like, okay, fine. It's like a quick 1 hour. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then Dylan used to ask me, how much time do you want? I don't know. So I would be running down this aisle. He said, 15 minutes. I'm like, yeah, sure. I don't know what I can buy in 15 minutes in a store, which is like a huge store. So I'm charging from one end of the store to the other end with my cart, trying to buy things. So then later, little by little, I kind of just learned how to work my way through to say, okay, this is how you got to do it. Because we're not as structured as this in India. You get up, you go to the store, you buy stuff, it was never like this. So I think I learned it. It was pretty organic. And again, this whole thing of, guess what? You don't have a choice. You run out of milk, you run out of milk. So
I was going to say that, all the training that your mother put through, I think your husband just made sure that, it's okay to throw Anu in the frying pan. She's going to figure it out.
Yeah, it was literally, it was just that. And then, yeah, and so that was how it was over here. And it kind of came through, I would think, I guess, pretty resilient to some extent. And again, you're young, everything is ahead of you, in front of you, you just want to make it. And there's that little bit of pride that I am not going to go down on this. And I don't think it was even a thought at that time. But now thinking back, it's like, I think it's the being fiercely independent and having such a being very, very clear on what you want to do is it just happens. I mean, I don't think if I thought through this process, probably I would have just stayed in bed and never woke up, kind of a thing. I mean, there were a lot of instances which taught me very, very interesting episodes for another time, was how life is in this country, and I had to go through it. I mean, one day, suddenly in the middle of the night, an alarm goes off and the cops show up, and I'm like shivering over here. Oh my God, why is the cop at my doorstep? Things like that. And so, but it taught me a lot of things, how to being through it. So I don't know how to even explain that. It sounds like a story, but that's what it was. And then when I joined this company, I started helping with the transition of getting all the materials for the production in India, just because that was where the manufacturing was happening. It was a phase in the company where the transition of production was happening from the different units to India. So I was helping out with that and having knowledge with exports and imports, having worked in an export house. So foreign international transportation and all of that was not foreign to me. It was I knew about it. So, but I only knew how to ship product out of India. So I did not know how to take products into India. So on the job, I was able to work with people, and there were a lot of people over here who helped me through it, especially the management, because that was it was a management's decision. And so there were struggles with the local people, but when you have a management decision and when you have the management backing you, you have to do your job. It's not that, as much as your colleagues might not like it, if you don't follow management's decision, guess what? You're out of a job. So that transition, that taught me how to deal with people and stick it out. Literally, when there were times when people would, not be that friendly. They're very friendly. Everyone's very nice to you. And it's all, if they don't like something, and people are very upfront, they come out and tell you they don't like it. And it was very hard to hear somebody say, no, that's not what I said. And, so to learn that and to understand how to, even I need to, just because somebody tells you to do it, even if it's management decision, if you just run away and do it, guess what? There are so many other people that affects in so many things operationally where you have to follow through. So it kind of gave more structure to a lot of things. I think I was a little bit more run off the seat of my pants, fly off the seat of my pants kind of a person. But this taught me to be how to kind of make sure things need to be done, and there are for everything there's a way to for it to be done. You don't think about it. Back in India, I don't think you think about that. It just ho jata hai, and then you figure it out later. Here it doesn't happen. You have to. There's a process, and again, that process was very organic. It was somebody tells you that you follow through, and I had some amazing bosses, and the people who they so much of the responsibilities they gave me. They would tell me, teach me a lot of things, and I just had a degree in natural sciences, and I learned everything on the job. And I had such fabulous bosses and people who helped me through the way, who I guess they saw something in me that they thought that they could tell me and I could follow the job through. So I ended up in the purchasing department, and I ended up in the purchasing and logistics, for which I still carry the same title as director of purchasing and logistics. And I got involved in operations very, very deeply at that point. And computer knowledge was very minimal. I was able to learn a system once I came here, because we never had databases back in India. We did everything by hand. So all of this, I was able to teach myself, learn, spend every day. I used to work 14, 15 hours, because there was work. And as you learned it, you go through that. And they helped me. There are some of them in my job I can never thank enough for what they made me and gave me the opportunities to. And one of my bosses, they would force me to take decisions. I was like, "Nay, I can't take a decision now. No, you have to take a decision." And they helped me through that process. So all of them have played such a great role to where I am today, to what we could. And we transitioned the production, which was a huge thing. We transitioned production from 3 different countries to India, and we started the production unit over there, and that the responsibility of scheduling the production from there and distributing the goods to all over the world, because the company that I currently work for has distribution centers globally. It's a global company. So managing the production over there with the whole team of people and distributing it to the different parts of the world, and getting in touch and working with logistics companies, transportation companies, and all of that. I had a whole bunch of people who helped me do that. And along the way, I was able to work and identify and stick with people like businesses, companies, and ultimately it's your word against them. I mean, you work with them, and we form, I can say very proudly say now, we have lifelong friendships with them. We might not be doing business today, but we're still very good friends. So we were able to set up a department to follow the norms. What is it, and do it very structurally and organize it. I was able to do all of that, which was a very I can't even think how this even happened today. Looking back, it's been a fabulous ride. And then eventually, it thought, I guess this is what it's meant to be. And then at some point, you start thinking, I started feeling deficient about, oh my God, I do all this, but I don't have the degree, or, I need to educate myself at least with a degree to say that I can do this. I had all the world's knowledge. I think I had a lot of work experience, but I did not have a degree to go with it. I started to feel deficient when I had to go for meetings, and I said, this is not right. There's something and it was always been a lifelong dream to get my MBA. Once I moved to the US, I always wanted to do my MBA. Then I said, okay, it's time to do my MBA. I mean, I had to put things away because a lot of things, work pressures and things like that. Finally, I got into grad school. I did my MBA in international business. I went to John Carroll, did a part-time MBA, went to evening school, and got my MBA. I started to feel a little more comfortable about it. There's only so much, Anu, that you can, when you sit in a room full of people with all of this knowledge and degrees. And I think to some extent, it was me. It was just me. Nobody had ever brought it up. I just started to feel like, if in the event that I have to go out and look for another job, I have what do I have to show people? What do I have to put on my resume? That I have all the work experience, but I don't have a degree. It started to bother me. So I said, okay, let's go. And it wasn't easy. I mean, going to grad school wasn't easy. It was rough. Hey, did it. And the skill sets, and for people who would like to get into this, and even now, I mean, it's such a growing field. I mean, we always talked about purchasing and logistics and transportation and all of that. And then today it's given a new word. Everybody talks about supply chain. Earlier, when I used to say logistics, they were like, what do you do? Logistics, what is that? So, thanks to the present times, it's got a new name. Everybody talks about supply chain. And now, when they talk about supply chain, that's what I've been doing all my life. I didn't have a new name at that point. So, it's a very, very interesting field, and it is an ever growing field. And there is never a single day, there is nothing new that doesn't happen. And yes, it is the simplest form of getting a product or a piece of material from point A to point B. But the amount and depends on where you transport it, and be it domestic, be it international, wherever may be the case. It's a very, very dynamic with changes that constantly happen. And there are a lot of today, there are a lot of degrees, there are a lot of universities offer supply chain as a major or a minor. That was never the case. But which is really nice. People have started to recognize that. And if for a person who's trying to get into this, I think you have to be 100% who enjoys operations, who enjoys working with people, who likes to, who know. If you don't have that personality, I don't think that would be a good fit for them, because if you're not a person who enjoys operations, and with operations comes a lot of challenges, you have to be able to not just enjoy it, you should be able to, like, more of a problem solver and more of a hands-on person. This job definitely needs a more hands-on, and there is never the one way. There's never the right way, or there's never a wrong way to do things. There are always different ways to do things. Like, I guess every business problem has. I like how you approach it. And you have to be curious about it. If you're not curious, if I did it this way, what would happen? How can I make the top spin in a different angle? That's if you don't have that kind of a thinking, and it comes with time. It's nothing, we all don't know everything when we start. We learn. And I think for the number of years that I've been in this, I still haven't learned it all, but it takes you through places. And also it gives you an opportunity to work with people because I work particularly with international, and I was thrown into domestic because I didn't have a choice again. But it gives you an opportunity to meet with people from different countries, talk different languages. I mean, in the sense, I can call my office back in England and in UK and start talking to them, and then, or somebody in Australia. So you get that interaction with people from different parts of the world. And if you enjoy it and you're curious about it, I think it's a great place. And there are a lot of things that you can do. I mean, in logistics itself, there are different areas that you can specialize in, and there are a lot of certifications that are offered, and they've always been there, and now even more so. And it's always good to have, and I would recommend people, if this is what you have at some point thought that you would like to be in, or if there's some inclination, right at the beginning, go ahead and finish all of your certifications. Not like me at the fact, I mean, like, okay, now I need to get it. No. If you could do that, I think you will have a better, maybe a different, your career path could be a lot more different. And I never changed jobs. I've never changed companies. I've always been in this company. So for me, that problem or that issue or anything has never risen. So I wouldn't be able to. But I think if you know, and if you're able to learn and teach yourself these things, it's a great field. And today the opportunities are plenty. You say supply chain, and it's like, which area of supply chain? Yeah, so that's where it is.
Thank you so much for giving this wonderful overview where you've really broken it down, and really, without using any jargons and industry language, made it really easy to understand what you do and what the field entails. And it also sounds not just exciting, but also like, it's future proof as far as AI is concerned.
Yeah, yeah,
Because there are things that you need people for, when you're talking about anything can happen and you have to be an outside the box thinker and
yeah.
hands-on problem solver. You have to interact with people. That
Sure.
just looks like a whole set of skills that are soft skills that are that
Absolutely.
human beings, can bring to the table better
Yeah.
than machines can.
Yeah. And also the thing is, if you get into a field like supply chain, the industry doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It can be any industry. It is not specific to a certain group, or you can get into the food industry, or you can, everybody talks about recession proof industries. I mean, that one is food and the other is clothing. And then when you talk about food, you have so many different uh, companies or so many different areas in food that you can be in. And even transportation, I mean, there is so many different things, and with all the Amazons and all of them coming, things like that, you can, you will, I don't think it's going to reach a point where you will be, of course you'll have the struggle of where to get in, but at least the skill set will, you can adapt it depending to whatever industry that when you start looking for a job, sometimes industry, you cannot be industry agnostic, right? You have to fit your job into that. So I think this is, it's a great platform for that, for sure.
And also looks like people that have, if they don't have, let's say, a bachelor's in business management, but have something in engineering. And I know a lot of people that graduate engineering and struggle to find jobs, perhaps with a combination of the education that they have and some certifications, right? In your industry.
Absolutely.
Some of the more important certifications like Apex, I would imagine.
Yes, Apex has got, Apex is one of them. And under Apex itself, there are different layers in the different departments in Apex. You have for supply chain, you have for purchasing, you have for logistics and transportation. And Apex gives a bunch of certifications, and those are really good. And I ended up finally getting Apex certified, again, feeling like, oh my God, I don't know a lot of things. So I got myself Apex certified very, very late in my career. Very recently, in fact, I got Apex certified. So, and again, that really helped. And so there are a lot of organizations who offers, and Apex is one of the largest one across the globe, which has these certifications. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
No, sure. And it's great that you have all that experience and that you brought to the table, learning everything on the job, having some excellent mentors, and picking up things on your own. But then for you to reinvent yourself at crucial steps in your career and say it's not just enough to have that knowledge. Also, there's a lot of humility on your part. So saying that I need to go get an education, I need to go get these certifications. That is the way to go. That is exactly the way you make sure that you're learning. You're always to gaining the knowledge and
Absolutely.
doing what is important to take your career forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at some point, I don't think, I mean, being so laid back to some extent, but I think pretty aggressive and not to get left behind. I mean, you don't want to be at a point where it's like, damn, I wish I had done that, So if whatever opportunity comes, and sometimes you can't take on everything. I mean, there was a time where you take on too many things, and it's like, okay, fine, it's not going, and I think automatically it just falls off. It doesn't be a part of you. So if it falls off, it falls off, and you just pick what you can and then move on. And I think that becomes a part of your life. That just becomes the way you are as a person, and that's how it is.
I just love it. I think it's filled with promise. The way you have talked about your own journey and about your personality. It really gives me insights into what are some of the things that people who have similar backgrounds and interests can do to really help themselves get into a career in this field. Because right now is where everybody's panicking about what's going to happen in the future, 5 years from now.
Correct.
Will my job be there?
Yeah.
But this sounds like a wonderful.
It is, and again, it's not, everything's not it's not perfect. I mean, you go through ups and downs, but I mean, like I said, I'd like to focus very much on the ups, and otherwise, guess what? I'll never get out of bed. There are days that way, but then you have to otherwise it's impossible to move on. You have to pick that, and and I'd like to focus on the wins more than anything else. And some days are better than are worse than the others, and some days are like awesome days, and some days you like, I don't want to see people, but I'd much rather focus on the good, and focus on the best part of life than the otherwise.
Great information. Thank you very much for sharing
Thank
all
you.
that wonderful wisdom as well. I think anybody who's watching this and curious about, especially youngsters who are curious about getting into this career, this conversation really would help them, because it gives them an overview of what your journey has been, the kind of person you are, and how you got into this field, and what are some of the things that you do. So I think you've really given a great, set of information on this platform to aspirants in the supply chain industry, but also in general, some of the soft skills that you need to be successful in the job. So thank you, Anu.
Thank you. Thank
That
you.
also helps us move along as we are talking about your personality to our next segment, which is the X Factor. And would love to hear from you. What do you consider to be your X Factor?
I just love to be around people. I mean, and I always say this. I get my energy from people, to be around people. And somebody once said, "Oh, you're a people person." I said, "There are days I'm not a people person, but I'm basically I love to be around people, and I like to meet new people. I like to meet, I find myself in situations where I am interacting with people I have barely known, and there are some of them I hit it off really well, and some of them, it's okay. It doesn't matter. I do fear sometimes. I do fear going into strange places, but once I go, it's like, it's okay. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're either going to have a good time. If you're having a bad time, just get into your car and leave. If you're having a good time, if you can meet people and talk to them, and strike new conversations, make new friends, and there is nothing more beautiful than that. I still, when I make friends, and some of my old friends, I mean, when I say old friends, I still have friends from my kindergarten days that we're still in touch with. And there are a few of us, and all of us are of the same nature. So there are some of them who've just moved away, and then there are still some of us. We move away, but after some time we all come back together because we need each other. So that is, for me, that is definitely one of it has helped me a lot, and I think that personality, or that side of me has helped me to adapt into different situations, and to come and live over here, and be and to do the kind of things that I've done, and to walk into meetings, and make people, it's not easy when you walk into a meeting and try to okay, whatever you say, you try to convince them. You might be able to convince them halfway, but at the end of it, you can still have a good, meaningful conversation with people, and you're sharing contact numbers and say, "Hey, nice talking to you, stay in touch." That makes a big difference. And that for me is, I mean, I think that is what has helped me, and I think it just comes naturally, I think. So I would like to think it comes naturally to me. Yeah.
Yeah, but I also, want to learn about your extensional activities outside of work, any organizations that you're part of, and, how things play out in those areas.
Yeah. So recently, I became at the Cleveland Playhouse Square. I'm a Red Coat volunteer. I started that post-COVID. That was something which I've always looked at whenever I go down to Playhouse Square. I used to think, "Oh, what is it? What do I have to do? Be a red coat?" And then I got this opportunity post-COVID. They were hiring, and then I am a red coat volunteer, and then I'm also very actively involved in we have a Kerala association in Ohio, the Malayali Association. I'm very actively involved in that, and I was the vice president a couple of years ago, and last year I was the president of the association. So very actively involved with in the Malayali community, and now recently in the last few months. Since last year, I'm also a part of an organization which is a federation of all the Malayali associations in North America. and it's called FOMA. That's the short form. It's the Federation of the Malayali Associations of North America. So they have different regions. It's divided. The organization is divided into 12 regions. And we belong to a region called the Great Lakes region, which is Ohio and Michigan. And in Michigan, there are 3 organizations, and in Ohio, we are the only organization a part of that. And we are members of the FOMA. And last year, I have been the Great Lakes region. For this particular region, I'm the Women's Forum chair for this region. And moving fast forward, currently, I am running for a national position for the FOMA, which is having its upcoming elections in the next 3 weeks. So I'm running for a position in the executive level as a joint treasurer, and which is going to be for the Americas, for US and Canada. So this particular organization is very involved with the Malayali diaspora, and they do a lot of philanthropic efforts, both for people in India and in the US. And then recently, as a part of this, I'm currently working on a particular fundraising effort for orphan kids in India for an organization called SOS Villages. So that takes up a lot of my time right now in the last since February, since I decided to run for a national level position. That is so now I'm literally going on an election campaign. There is every weekend I'm in another in a different state, different region, trying to reach out to people. So in 3 weeks, the convention comes up is in Punta Cana. So that's where it is. So these are the little few things that I'm currently involved in. This takes up quite a bit of my time right now, and again in this process, it comes making new friends, meeting people, and I'm in a day I make about 30-40 phone calls just to reach out to people who are coming in for this to the convention. So I have to interact with them. A lot of people don't know me. Very few people know me. So you have to make your presence felt, right? The only way to do is to call them. So you call them, talk to them, and every region. Last weekend I was in Florida for 2 days. Coming weekend I'm going to New York, because that's where every region has its own stronghold places. So that's what I do apart from work. Yeah.
Wonderful. And this comes very easy to you, because you're pretty much bringing all the skills that you've
Correct.
along, not just in your job, but also into these activities, and wishing you all the very best.
Thank you.
I hope you make it. We've got a presidential election coming up, and we definitely are looking at a potential win for a woman to be heading this country.
Yeah.
That goes, but we definitely hope that you win the
position. Thank you so much. This is a great plan. It's a great organization. There's so much to be done. I mean, because it's basically focusing on the Malayalis. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, we're all Indians first. I mean, everything else comes later. To be a representative of this organization, which comes together, which is a part of the other local, like you have Tana, you have Akka, you have the Tamil organization, you have the Gujarati Bus Association. I mean, this is one of a similar organization like that. Through these organizations, we are able to come together, and we can do a lot of projects for us immigrant Indians and Malayalis, or whoever may be the case, immigrant Indians.
That's great to know. And you rightly mentioned that these organizations not just help you connect with people like yourself in your community, but you also give you an opportunity to do something really meaningful. The kind of causes they aspire, kind of organizations they're supporting, whether it's here or it's back home in India. So I think that's great. That's really great.
Yeah, and also gives you an opportunity to meet with people, and because we also do, my husband and me, we're very interested in the arts and culturally. So we do work with music. We've been fortunate that we've been able to work with musicians who can come and showcase their talent over here in the Cleveland area, and then so with an interest like that, and all of these are just interests which only brings us to be able a part of a community. So, and then for us to, I mean, when we're so much a part of the community, and also we have to invest ourselves to impart that feeling of community and bring people together to make sure that it is just 2 or 3 people cannot be a community. We are we are a larger group, and unless we bring that and we are able to develop that and bring people, that's the only way we can develop a community. And be strong, and I strongly believe in that, and we have to do that. And especially when we have migrated away from our homes where we grew up, our country where we grew up, when we migrate, and I think a community is required, not just for our own well-being, but for also for our children or for the next generation. We would love to instill our whatever we have learned into our next generation, and also help them adapt and live in this. They easily adapt and live in this community, in this country, but we don't want to let what we know and what we have learned die so quickly. So we want to inculcate in the kids, and only by getting them interested in a community we will be able to do that. I strongly believe in that.
The women that have come on my show who have brought such wealth of experience and knowledge and talents and skills, and they're able to enrich the community we live in with all of that, and pass on the baton to the next generation. I think it's just such a great honor. So Anu, with that, we'll move on to a final segment of the show, which is a segment called self-care, which is extremely important for every woman to invest in. And on my show, I talk about the 4 different levels: the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual level at which you are taking care of yourself. So help us understand that.
As I was mentioning before, for me to stay healthy is very, very important, because for the most part, my husband travels a lot and I'm by myself. So it's just my husband and me. We have a wonderful set of friends. We have a wonderful support system, and everybody I know who's just a phone call away, and I just have to, But for me, that's nice. I'm so blessed that it is that way. But if I don't take care of myself, and if I'm down with a cold or a fever or something like that, so it's very important for me to stay healthy. There was an episode in my life where I was laid up for 3-4 months. I couldn't get up. I couldn't walk. I broke my ankle. And so it was very difficult. And at that time, I went through one of my worst downs in my life, and I thought I would never be able to walk. But it's like, it was just an ankle break. Okay. But it was like, that kind of brought my life to a standstill. I was sitting on a couch, not being able to do anything. So once I recovered, then I thought, okay, I really need to do something. So I started training, I started running, and then I was a person who hated yoga. I would go to the yoga center, and I would take, at that time, I used to go to the different yoga sessions, and they said, okay, why don't we lay down and breathe 5 minutes? And I'm like, in 2 minutes, I'm up. I'm like, okay, are we done yet? That was the person that I was. I just did not have the patience or the mindset to do it. So then, once, when I realized that I was injured and I could not really do, the only way I could get back was get my body back to I'm basically a pretty active person. I used to go workouts, Zumba, all of those things. I used to run around and do it. But then I could not do that because I was kind of not able to do it. So that's when I got more into yoga, and I started to enjoy it. And to a point, okay, today I think I'm ready to go on a yoga retreat kind of a place. For me, fitness, like I said, fitness is very important. And to be mindful of my body, to be mindful of my health. And I started, I used to swim a little bit, but I was never a swimmer. So I told myself I have to learn something. So I went to I took adult swimming lessons. And when I get a chance, I try to go swimming. And I picked up tennis. I'd never picked up a tennis racket in my life. I've been an avid follower of all the tennis tournaments growing up in India. So there was an adult tennis session that they were teaching. So I joined that session, and then I started to learn to play tennis. And then we have a group of ladies. We all started learning to play tennis today. We still play tennis today, and we even play the league level today. And we have a lot of fun. So that's what we do. And then that's for my physical and all of this. if, as much as it is a physical, to stay physically fit, there is so much of mental and emotional fitness that this brings in. And being on the tennis court and just hitting the tennis ball for an hour and a half every week is just, there's nothing more therapeutic than that. It is very, very therapeutic. And then just going out for on a nice, pleasant summer day, just going out for a run or a walk or something, it's very, very therapeutic. So those are the kind. I mean, I try to keep myself busy with all of that, and yeah, and I'm not really. I'm God fearing, but I'm not too much into the rituals and things like that. I consider myself more of a spiritual person. So I have my own little routines and things which, for me, which whatever suits me. I'm a very, I'd rather call myself a fair weather person. So whatever suits me in my little way, I kind of I have my own little connection with whom I believe there is, who I definitely believe there is somebody who looks over me. And every waking minute, I am so thankful to what I have today, where life has taken me. There are certain things, life's journey takes you through so many different aspects. And everything is not good. There are so many, like I said, there are downs. But definitely, if I'm able to get up and smile about it and be happy and even talk to you, there's definitely somebody who's looking over me, and I do believe that there is I call it a guardian angel or somebody watching over me, or I 100% believe it's my 100% my dad's blessings has always been with us all along what we did. Otherwise, a person from Kerala, from a small village in Kerala, having the mindset to come and live in a big city like Bangalore and saying that parents wanting to raise their children back then in the 70s in India, in Bangalore, is it definitely, he had a vision. And my mother, even after my father passed away, having to say that, no, I am not moving back to Kerala. I will stay in Bangalore and my daughters will grow up in Bangalore. I could not be more thankful to both of them to what they have done for us in that manner.
Anu, it's been great conversing with you and getting to know you. Before we wrap up, any parting words from you to our audience?
Thank you so much, Anu, for giving me this opportunity. And I think, and also I have to thank my dear friend, Smita, who was the one who talked to me about this, and she mentioned it, and she told you about, and I was like, I've seen the people that you have interviewed and you have talked to and all of that. And I'm like, I don't even, I mean, all of them are so highly accomplished in wherever they are. Big thanks to her. And and also I'm so glad I got this chance to meet my namesake in the same city. And we've just seen each other in passing in so many different locations. And so, yeah. And what you have over here, Anu, I think is a great way for people in the Indian diaspora to come out. And I do listen to all of your videos, and there are a lot of people that I know personally, and there are some people, I mean, it's very interesting to see what everybody's journey is and what you have over here. I do believe it's very motivating. I get to meet a lot more people, a lot more women, and everybody. They are like, oh, I know how to do this, but I really don't know how to get it out there. And I think these are the different platforms that we have. If there is an interest and people can talk about it, and unless you and it's very hard to find them, unless you know of people or somebody as gracious as Smita was to introduce me to you for this particular platform. And there's no way to do that. So I'm really glad you're doing something like this. And to all the people, I mean, to whoever who's listening to this, you know what, every day cannot be a good day, but you know what, stay focused on the good, and if you put your best foot forward with self-doubt is something which is very, very dangerous. And the more you become, if you start doubting your capabilities or your own self, it will not, it can definitely be the biggest barrier you're putting to your own self. So just take on life as it comes, and put your best foot forward, smile, meet a lot of people, and if you don't like them, just walk away. If you like them, stick on. You have a friend for life, right?
Love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Anu, for bringing your authentic self on this show.
Well, thank
and
you.
taking the time to share your life journey, and in the process giving us the opportunity to not just understand your story, admire all the things that you've accomplished in life, but also share insights into what made you the person you are through this spotlight. So I'm really grateful to you once again for taking time out of your very busy schedule. Wishing you all the success in your future endeavors. And
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anu, for
absolutely.
the time and for this opportunity to be a part of Sarva Gunn Sampann. And thank you so much.